But there is also the possibility that Guy Gardner is dead. Hey everybody, Colton here, and in this one we have got a question from Michael. Michael writes, what did you think about the Lanterns trailer? I think it looks like a good show, but it doesn't feel like a Green Lantern show. All right, well, thanks so much for the question, Michael. And yeah, that sentiment you're sharing there is pretty much what I'm seeing in the comments, various other emails and tweets that I got. And even with myself, as someone who, as you'll soon hear, I enjoyed the trailer. I think the show looks like it's going to be a good show, but yeah, I mean, it doesn't feel like a Lantern show. Is that a bad thing? Well, let's talk about it. So we got the trailer for Lanterns, and we got it a day early because the damn thing got leaked, and I think they made the right call over at DC by just releasing it because it was like a full HD leak, not some grainy cell phone recording. So my thoughts on the trailer are mixed. From a technical perspective, from a visual perspective, from a performances by the actors and the dialogue and the story perspective, the show looks great. It really does. And it feels like one of my favorite shows, a true detective type show, which is what they said before the show even came out when the show was in development. They said that's what to expect. So it does feel like that. It feels like a Mare of Easttown or what's that movie by Sheridan? Hell or High Water. It feels like that type of project. And I love those types of shows and movies. They're my jam. But I'll agree that that's not at all what you would expect out of a Green Lantern show. You know, when they said it's going to feel like True Detective, I mean, I didn't take that as like literally it's going to look and feel like True Detective. I thought they just meant that it was going to have like that same level of maybe stakes and like maturity and severity of situation. And it would be kind of transferred onto like these two space cops and, you know, the rookie and the seasoned veteran learning from each other and cracking a case. But I thought that maybe they'd tell a story that, I don't know, took place in space. So yeah, there's that slight, I don't know if disappointment is really the word, but there's that slight subversion of expectation, I think, that we're all feeling here. Now, anyone who's bitching and moaning and acting like the show looks bad, come on. These are the same dorks that don't like Andor. This show, I think, in all likelihood, it's going to be a really good show. And I know people are going to say that, oh, that's because he's a gun glazer. He's a DCU glazer. I'm really saying it. Yes, I like James Gunn, and I think James Gunn has a serious like quality standard. But I'm really saying this because I have so much confidence in HBO. I'm being a bit of an HBO glazer in this specific situation. Do I have some concerns? Yes, but they're quickly being like mitigated when I even think about them for like more than a second. Such as, do I hate, for example, and if you've watched me for a while, you probably kind of know this. Do I hate when superhero shows opt to like put their characters in street clothes and have them do a bunch of like mundane stuff, like driving around in a car instead of flying around as a Green Lantern? Yes, that can look and feel a little cheap and like they're just like filling time. I also hate on like CW shows how cheap the costumes look. And I know people are making fun of the costume that we saw hanging in the closet. That looks like a real movie quality costume. So you can talk all the smack you want, but it doesn't to me feel like, you know, a green leather jacket with the Green Lantern logo on it, like you would get like on a CW type show. And I realize I say that as I think it is kind of a lantern, a leather suit with a lantern on it, but I digress. My point is that it looks like an actual like in-universe costume that he would wear. The show doesn't look and feel cheap. It looks anything but cheap. I mean, there are like, you know, Marvel and Star Wars shows that do go all out in terms of like costume and visual effects. And, you know, they still just wind up looking cheap despite having gigantic, like bigger than movie level budgets. This show, though, it's different. It looks like a movie in terms of the time you can tell that was spent to make sure that it looks well just from a cinematography standpoint. And the reason that you will notice a significant difference in quality when it comes to a movie and a TV show is because of the speed at which they are made. You have more time when it comes to making a movie. You have less time when it comes to making a show. But HBO shows, they've always been made like movies. So this series really does have that pristine HBO feel to it. So I'm not worried that this is going to be some dog shit show, because on average, HBO puts out consistently banger content, and they hold themselves to a standard that we really don't see in any other streamer. We really don't see any other streamer hold themselves to that standard, except for maybe like Apple TV. I would say they hold themselves to that standard. That's why if a major corporation was going to buy Warner Brothers, and now we know Skydance is getting it, Paramount. But back when all of this was still up in the air, and like even before Netflix, won the initial bid, I was saying that the best scenario might be Apple, just because I feel like Apple and HBO share that same like attention to detail, and they don't tolerate like subparness, if that makes sense. Now, my other concern is, well, like even if this show is good, is it going to feel like maybe it's not scratching the itch that we want it to, because it's just two guys running around in jeans and jackets in a car on dirt roads, which is something that many great shows have, just dudes in regular clothes driving around in cars, and we don't think twice about it because it fits that show. But if it's taking place in a show where we are expecting to see, people, lanterns with their green lanterns and their glowing green lantern costumes and fighting aliens, if that's what people are expecting, and then they go into this, maybe that hurts the show. But they've been really upfront that that's not what this show was going to be. That one promo image we've had of the show was them in regular clothes walking down a dirt road. The trailer and anything we've seen from the show has not acted like it's going to be some big space adventure. So, and I wonder if people are kind of tired of the surface level, sloppy CG, colorful beams shooting at, other shiny, colorful CGI beams and aliens. And don't get me wrong, there's a place for that. And a Green Lantern show is certainly one of the places for that style of show. But I think what's most important overall is the quality of the story, right? Everything else comes after that. What's most important is that you have a solid story. And I believe that they have something great here. I really do. And while I do question how a backwoods, small county, down to earth and mundane, the way this show looks, in it being for a lantern show, a Green Lantern show, I do think it's very much so on purpose, right? This show isn't about being an active Green Lantern off in space fighting aliens. This show is about a man learning what it means to be a Green Lantern. There's a line in the trailer where John says that he hasn't used the ring yet, and that they've been training for months, and that this is essentially John and Hal's Peter and Tony moment, like in Spider-Man Homecoming, when Tony tells Peter that if he's nothing without his suit, then he shouldn't have it. Well, the same is true for one of the single most powerful weapons in all of existence, the Green Lantern and the ring. In order to be worthy of that much power and the responsibility that comes with that, you have a lot of work you need to do before you even get close to the part of actually like putting on the ring and training with the ring itself. And that's what I think we're going to be getting in this show. And there's an in-story reason that we aren't getting a bunch of flashbang, boom, kabam, green all over this show. It looks to me like we're getting a story where we are going to like learn that Hal Jordan's Green Lantern, he's this, seasoned, retired, like veteran type character. He's basically retired from the role, and perhaps that's because like Guy Gardner has taken up the mantle. I mean, he is the Green Lantern and Superman, and he's an active member of the Justice Gang. I think it would make sense if we learn that Hal is no longer the Earth's Green Lantern, no longer the Earth's protector. But if that's the case, then what's happening in this show? Why is Hal back in the mix? Why is John in training to take up the mantle of the Green Lantern? Well, where the hell is Guy? Well, I think I know exactly what is happening in this Lantern series, despite the trailer giving us very little of the actual plot. We know that Guy Gardner is in the show, but I don't think he's in it much. I think we're going to see a situation where we learn that Guy Gardner is missing and perhaps presumed dead. Hell, maybe he is dead. And I tend to lean toward thinking that he's been sent to the same place as like Peacemaker on Salvation. My current theory is that like Hot Girl was put there after killing the president of Bravia, and then Guy like went apeshit over it and landed himself there, or he's gone after her to save her, and then that connects with the beginning of Peacemaker season 2 and gives them a reason to have been in that show other than it just being like a cameo, a pointless cameo. Not that it was a pointless cameo, because, Peacemaker, he wanted to join the Justice Gang and all that, but they can tie it all back in, and it can feel even more important that Peacemaker met those characters to begin with if Guy and Hot Girl were always planned by Gunn to wind up in Salvation with Peacemaker, just like he did at the end of that show. And maybe we could actually get like a show or a movie that shows Guy and Hot Girl and Peacemaker and whoever else on Salvation. But it's not what the video's about. But there is also the possibility that Guy Gardner is dead. And the reason I'm kind of leaning, I wouldn't say I'm leaning one way or the other, but I'd say I'm kind of 50-50 on it. The reason I think he could be dead is because, one, it's a murder mystery, murder investigation, right? And two, I think that if Guy died, and if John is in training to become a Green Lantern, well, then that kind of implies that Guy would no longer be Green Lantern, right? I know in the comics they're all like, they've been active Green Lanterns at the same time, but I feel like in the DCU, there's always maybe going to be one Green Lantern. So I think if Hal Jordan is going to become Green Lantern, then you got to get rid, or I'm sorry, if John Stewart is going to become Green Lantern, then Guy's time is going to have to come. So I could see a scenario where like Guy dies and John is the one that finds him, just like Hal found, a dying, what's his name? I wrote it down. Abin Sur, the alien that Hal Jordan found dying and got the ring from. Just like Hal found a dying Green Lantern and got the ring from Abin Sur, I think we could learn that John finds Guy Gardner dying, and John could be given the ring. And in Guy's dying breaths, as he gives the ring to John Stewart, he could tell him, hey, go find Hal Jordan, and he can say something fun like he's an asshole, but he can help you. Because I kind of like the idea of maybe Hal and Guy not really liking each other, but simultaneously having like a mutual respect or something like that, since they've both have served as Green Lantern. So I like the idea if we get to see Guy die in like a really impactful, emotional way. Maybe he's killed by the same cats who are sending people to Salvation or whatever, because they're trying to arrest him and he fights them and he ends up dying. Lots of stuff you could do there, lots of world building. So they could have Guy die, John find him, and have Guy give him the ring and say, go to Hal Jordan. And that would make sense as to why Hal says in the trailer to John, when he asks if, he talks to the other Lanterns, Hal says, he's the only human, and one of them's a fucking squirrel, and they're all aliens. That would explain, well, there's Guy Gardner, he's a Green Lantern. Maybe he's dead, and that's why he's saying like he's the only human Green Lantern. And really quick, while we're on that topic, can I just say, I've seen some people saying, wow, it's so inconsistent. They just completely forgot that there's even another Green Lantern. This isn't matching up. They don't know what they're doing. Guys, Nathan Fillion's Guy Gardner is in the fucking show. He's in the show as Green Lantern. So we don't know the context of that scene where Hal is saying he's the only human. There's a shit ton of possibilities as to what he is talking about in that scenario. It's not just because they forgot and there's this screw up where the writers just completely forgot that there's another human Green Lantern. No. So yeah, I think Guy could tell John to, go get trained by Hal, and then that's what the show is. It's John finding Hal Jordan, the guy that used to be Green Lantern, the original like Green Lantern of Earth. Well, He was the original Green Lantern of Earth, right? And he's getting trained. They're both learning from one another, and then the show could be like this young, like aspiring guy wanting to become Green Lantern, and he's having to deal with this old like curmudgeony seasoned veteran who used to be Green Lantern and he's retired from it, and maybe he didn't like the transition that happened. Like maybe he kind of felt like maybe he wasn't ready for that transition, and Guy just kind of swooped in and took that mantle or something, and there's like some bitter feelings there, and we can hear all about that and have some great exchanges between Hal and John as he is teaching him to be a Green Lantern, and maybe at the same time John's kind of teaching Hal and reminding Hal about a time when he was a superhero and maybe not so curmudgeony and mad at the world. So yeah, I'm typically not fond of the approach that Marvel has tried with trying to like do different genre shows in the same universe. I like the idea of the MCU just kind of being its own genre. And you know, sure, they can have different projects that maybe lean more into comedy or horror or action, but the main genre, I think, should always be we're a Marvel movie. Because I think we're beginning to realize that when you do a comic book show and bill it as a whatever, a legal drama, a day in the life comedy, whatever, with the hopes of attracting like a wider audience that typically might not watch a comic book show, I think that what you really end up with is people who wouldn't typically watch a comic book show saying, Marvel, no thanks. I haven't seen, you know, the other Marvels or DCs. I don't like superhero stuff. Not going to watch it. And then you have people who would normally watch a comic book show who are like, oh, this doesn't. And then you have people who would normally watch a comic book show, and then they're like, oh, this doesn't have enough crash, bang, boom CGI slop going on with aliens and interdimensional threats. Show's not for me. And I say that in jest because I love those types of things too, right? But then you have a show like Penguin that can work and appeal to this really wide audience because he's already like in a grounded like Batman world. But you know, when you try to do like a comic book like She-Hulk, like Roar She-Hulk, you know, it's a Hulk show / funny legal drama for the girls type show, I think you end up just alienating both audiences. And I say that as a fan of the She-Hulk show. So I hope I'm making sense, but I really do just think that DC's main goal in terms of having a consistent genre, but also feeling like they can try different things. I hope they keep it the main like tippy top genre that applies to all DC stuff, the same thing that HBO does, which is we make top quality stuff. Our stuff is always really good, really well made, and you will not regret having spent an hour of your precious time watching one of our shows. People go to HBO knowing I have very limited time. I busted my ass all day. The kids are asleep. I want to watch a show. They don't feel like they're running the dice when they turn on an HBO show. DC needs to be able to do that. And I'm hoping that that's what we're getting. Quality over quantity. And I think that's the only way you can really attract the normies that might feel overwhelmed and also attract the dedicated fan base who want the crash, bang, boom, super laser extravaganza and who may at first be like slightly disappointed, like, oh, well, this is more of a workplace comedy. That's not what I was in the mood for. But when you make something just so good that it's universally beloved, well, then you get a universal audience. I hope that makes sense. So again, it's easier to meld those worlds with a grounded hero like Batman, but it's really hard when you try to ground a character like a space cop with a magic ring. But if any show is going to do it, I think it's this one. And I think Peacemaker was also a show that successfully did it. Peacemaker was fucking hilarious, well made, had true stakes, really heavy material, but also he was walking through interdimensional doors to other universes. So the full package. And I expect the same out of Lanterns. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on this Lanterns trailer down in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts, your theories. And yeah, are you excited? All right. Thank you so much for the question. I want to make sure I get the name right. Michael, thank you so much for the question. Michael, I hope that answered it.